And what should happen with the expiring Bush tax cuts and the impending fiscal cliff coming up?
I believe we should extend the tax reductions across the board. I do, though, think in order to pay down the debt and bring fiscal conservatism to Washington and avoid the fiscal cliff, we need to make cuts in other parts of government. I can give you some examples, and some are places where Democrats might not like, some are places where Republicans might not like. I'll start with places that Republicans might not like. There's a lot of Republicans that say defense spending should be totally off the table. I respectfully and fundamentally disagree. As a Marine Corps vet who spent time in Iraq and here domestically, there are opportunities for common sense cuts. I actually think we should begin by looking at a lot of our bases and installations throughout the world outside of the United States. Every 5 years or so there's a BRAC process, base realignment and closure process, where there's a top-bottom review of military bases throughout the United States. I believe we have to engage in an aggressive foreign BRAC process, where we look at bases, American bases throughout the world, and ask the question, how are these contributing to the national defense of our country and to our diplomatic efforts? One of the places I believe we should start is Europe. We're not fighting the Nazis anymore. We're not fighting the Cold War anymore. We have all these bases, though, throughout Germany, throughout Italy, throughout Europe. And I believe through doing a top-bottom review of a lot of those installations, we'll see opportunities for cuts in trim down or shut down of some of those installations. And I believe we can do that without at all compromising the national security of our country. I also believe we need to take a hard look at foreign aid. Our foreign aid process is broken, to say the least. And a few months ago, Sherrod Brown voted to give $1 billion of our tax money to Pakistan, right in the wake of Pakistan convicting for treason the gentleman who helped us find Osama bin Laden. I believe it was fiscally irresponsible and morally wrong for Sherrod Brown and others to take our tax money and vote to give it to Pakistan in the wake of Pakistan convicting for treason the guy who helped us find Osama bin Laden. We then saw this past week in the New York Times on Monday, the New York Times reported that the Obama administration is talking about giving $450 million to Egypt, a couple weeks after the United States Embassy was overrun in Egypt. I do not think that's a wise use of our tax dollars, and frankly, with Social Security and Medicare on the brink of bankruptcy, today we read that our Postal Service is defaulting on pension benefits for postal workers. With those kind of serious problems in Washington, we don't have the money, and it doesn't make sense to give our hard-earned tax dollars to countries like Egypt and Pakistan that harbor terrorists.
Democratic complaints about extending the Bush tax cuts across the board is that it would increase the problem with the deficit. Do you agree?
Well, I do not think it would increase it if we made cuts in other parts of our government. Defense, when it comes to our military installations. We need to, in my mind, have a freeze on many types of spending in Washington. We also need to extend the earmark ban. While it doesn't make a huge impact on the bottom line, it does make somewhat of an impact. In addition to that, we need to do a top-bottom review of our federal government the same way that I did in the Treasurer's office, and ask the question, how can we apply common sense and leverage technology to make money? I believe there's a lot of agencies and bureaucracies and organizations under all these different cabinet departments that probably do not need to exist. And I do not know the last time there was a top-bottom review of our federal government where we actually asked the question, what year was this agency created? The year it was created, how much did it cost the taxpayers versus what does it cost the taxpayers now? What was the mission of the agency the year it was created? What is the mission of the agency now? How many people worked at the agency the year it was created? How many people work there now? And I think through doing a top-bottom review of so many different agencies in Washington, we could save a lot of tax money that way. And I'll give you a quick example from my office, and obviously we're talking about a lot less zeros, but we did a top-bottom review of the Treasurer's office. We cut around $900,000 in personnel costs alone. Keep in mind, a significant portion of our office are union employees, so we didn't even touch those union employees. That's just at-will employees, around $900,000 in reductions. 2 years in a row, we've cut our budget voluntarily. The first year of the budget I inherited from Treasurer Boyce, we voluntarily gave $400,000 back to the taxpayers, even though those dollars were already allocated to me in the Treasurer's office. This year, we cut about another 1.5, 1.6 million, and so we've cut over $2 million. And some of it was just common sense type stuff. I mean, there was a guy every day who was driving checks from our office in Columbus to KeyBank in Cleveland to deposit them. And so I asked the question, if individual citizens can do banking on an iPhone or on a personal computer, how about state government? And the answer we got back from some folks who'd been there for a while was, well, Treasurer Mandel, this is how we've always done it. And that attitude of this is how we've always done it is a major problem in Washington. And it's not just a problem with the Democratic Party, it's a problem with the Republican Party as well. I think there's a lot of Democrats and Republicans, career politicians who've been there for too long, who have the attitude that they've always done it one way, so that's the right way to do it. And when I go to Washington, one of my missions will be to disrupt that attitude and say, listen, just because you've done it this way for 20 years doesn't mean we're going to keep doing it this way. We actually have to think outside the box, apply some private sector applications to making government more efficient.
By the way, on defense cuts, are you just advocating closing foreign bases, or are there other defense cuts you're also looking to make?
I think we need to, in addition to bases, which are hardened costs, with the actual facilities infrastructure, I think it's time to bring some of our young men and women home from different places throughout the world. And obviously, when they're abroad, it oftentimes costs more to us as taxpayers. You may be aware, oftentimes in different theaters of operations, you have troops who are not paying certain types of taxes, which I actually think is a good thing. I think if there's young men and women, kids and grandkids of America over there serving, there should be some hazardous duty pay and other benefits in that respect. But with more folks here working domestically, I believe we'll save money, and I would much rather have them based at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base than somewhere in Germany or Italy.
Now,